evolutionary advantage.
100 million years later, when these creatures emerged from underground, a slender, tube-like animal appeared, what we now call a snake. By the time the dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago, snakes had diversified and become more widespread. Some species would die out, but others continued to evolve, relentlessly adapting, changing to fit the circumstances of climate, habitat, and access to food. Today, there are some 3,000 species of snakes, sharing many anatomical features with other vertebrates, including humans.
Snakes have pretty much all the same organs that humans do. They have stomachs, intestine, lungs, hearts, kidneys. All of those organs are still present inside the snake, but many of them are highly modified to fit their body type. One example of that is their lungs. One is much more outsized than the other and takes up the majority of its respiration.
The snake's unique body type hasn't kept it from adapting to a variety of habitats.
They live in the forests, underground, up in trees, in the oceans, in freshwater, and there's really no other vertebrate that have been able to exploit all those different environments. Another feature shared by all snakes is that they are ectothermic, often referred to as cold-blooded. So this means that they get their heat from the environment, as opposed to mammals, who have internal metabolisms that help maintain body temperature.
Snakes are natural-born predators, but their vision is not a primary weapon in the hunt. That's because, as burrowing animals, they had little use for eyes.
So snakes' eyesight is highly variable across different species. Some are very adept at seeing their prey. Some are only able to see blurry motions. Some have evolved to have excellent eyesight, especially at night.
As for hearing, snakes lack external ears, but can perceive sounds by picking up vibrations in the ground through a bone in their jaw.
They don't have external ear openings or even an eardrum, but they have retained inner ear structures that are connected to their jawbone. So since snakes often have their jaw touching the ground, it's very important for them to be able to sense those vibrations.
Given their body type and habitat, a snake's world is rich in tactile cues. They rely on touch to move from place to place, having receptors on their skin that guide them over the ground, up a tree, or in the water. Their sense of smell is another story. It begins with the flickering forked tongue, which picks up scents from the air. When drawn back, the twin tips transfer the scent particles to the roof of the mouth, near a chamber called the Jacobson's organ, where the particles are identified and the information passed on to the brain. So while snakes do have nostrils for breathing, it's this sophisticated sense of smell that enhances their ability to track prey, find mates, and elude predators when navigating the world. Researchers have found in the past some snakes reached incredible sizes, as much as 43 feet long and 2,500 pounds. Today, giant snakes are a more modest size, but they're still big. The Indian python, native to southern Asia, is one, averaging about 12 feet and weighing 100 pounds. These giants live in tropical regions so they can warm up their bodies quicker. Other large snakes include the anaconda, the Burmese python, and the boa constrictor. These species are known for killing by constriction, grasping prey with their sharp teeth, coiling their bodies around it, and squeezing until the victim's chest collapses, lungs deflate, and heart stops pumping. Then, the process of eating begins. Thanks to stretchy ligaments in their jaws, snakes swallow their food whole.
This is enabled by lots of different adaptations that they have in their jaw and in their skull. They have very highly flexible ligaments that enable them to be very fluid when they're swallowing prey. It's these highly flexible joints that they've evolved to be able to expand and contract and accept this very large prey.
A snake's flexible jaw makes it capable of unusual captures. This rat snake has a baby magpie in its mouth, while its mother screeches in protest. Rat snakes often climb trees to plunder bird nests, searching for eggs or young hatchlings. This time, the mother frees her baby. But there are others still at risk. Without the element of surprise, the snake must decide whether to pursue another chick or look elsewhere. Regardless of their size, most snakes kill by constriction. And it's not long before this snake finds a victim. First, the bite. Then, the struggle. Constriction is generally more effective on mammals and birds which breathe frequently than on creatures like reptiles or fish. But once in the snake's grip, death is moments away. Despite being legless, snakes have evolved ways of getting around, depending on their muscular system and the scales on their body. There's the familiar side-to-side wave-like motion. The straightforward, caterpillar-like crawling, typical of heavier-bodied snakes. The stretch and fold accordion motion. And sidewinding, used by those species traveling loose, wind-blown sand. Snakes are found on every continent except Antarctica, with differences in climate and habitat influencing the emergence of different species. Millions of years of evolution have produced snakes of astonishing variety, including some who've developed a highly specialized method of capturing prey that's lightning quick and deadly. About 70% of snake species kill by constriction, literally squeezing the life out of their prey. Most of the remaining 30% use a more recently evolved delivery system. The snake bite, which injects toxic venom into the victim. Venom is a newer weapon, an adaptation that arose between 60 and 80 million years ago. It consists of toxic secretions produced in the snake's oral gland, a kind of modified saliva that enters the victim's bloodstream, paralyzing or killing it.
Snake venom delivery depends on the species. Some animals actually bite and hold on to their prey and inject venom over a long period of time. A lot of those species have toxins in their venom to immobilize their prey, to prevent that animal from actually hurting the snake. Other snakes have actually evolved a different delivery system where they're able to envenomate very quickly with a quick bite and retract. That actually allows the prey to run away, but the snake is able to track down that prey and consume it.
There are two main types of snake venom. Neurotoxic, affecting the victim's nervous system, or hemotoxic, affecting the circulatory system. But regardless of its type, each individual snake produces its own specific venom. Of the roughly 600 kinds of venomous snakes, 30 or so are cobras, one of the most recognizable species known. All cobras are large, measuring up to 10 feet long. On the hunt, they'll capture prey by stealth, staying low to the ground, waiting to ambush them. And they have small, hollow fangs for injecting venom. While cobras use venom for killing, it can also be used as a defensive weapon. When threatened, a cobra will typically rear up, flare out the ribs in its neck, flashing its hood to appear more menacing. Some of them go even further. Instead of tangling with a larger enemy close up, this spitting cobra will force air from its lungs, while a muscle contraction projects a toxic stream of venom out through its fangs.
Their fangs actually have forward-pointing slits in them that enable them to actually direct venom out away from their body, which they use to spray at the eyes of potential predators.
The cobra can spray venom up to 8 feet. If it hits the eyes, it causes severe pain and irritation. Without quick treatment, the victim's cornea may be destroyed, leading to blindness. This weapon is an evolutionary development, millions of years in the making. Even newborn cobras come equipped to spit venom. But there are other snakes whose use of venom is more conventional. Far Eastern Europe and Asia is home to several species of venomous snakes called mamushis.
The mamushi is very adapted to being a nocturnal hunter. One of the things you'll first notice about these snakes is that they have a vertical eye slit, which helps them to better take in the low light conditions at night.
In addition, mamushis have infrared facial pits, allowing them to detect the presence of warm-blooded prey.
Essentially, this pit is to recognize the heat signature coming off of an animal. This ability has proven very advantageous to pit vipers in general. They're also able to sense animals without any light. Research has shown that even with taking away their sight and their sense of smell, they're still able to effectively hunt.
Mamushis are known for their aggressive disposition, preferring to confront rather than flee from adversaries. And this can induce an unwelcomed response. In Japan, the mamushi is often called the seven-step viper because its venom is believed to immobilize victims within 7 steps of being bitten. Each year in the country, the mamushi bites about 2,500 people. Though few fatalities result, the consequences are still painful and debilitating, with hospital recoveries taking at least a week. In the wild, mamushis are hunters that use camouflage to disguise their approach. There's a pause to assess the situation. Then a slow crawl towards its prey, continually flicking its tongue, its pits providing thermal cues. In an instant, it bites the victim, quickly delivering a load of venom. Then another bite. And within moments, the venom is at work, leaving the animal breathing its last breaths, destined to be the mamushi's meal. Of all the venomous snakes in the world, the black mamba is perhaps the most feared for its deadly bite. This long, slender snake is found in Africa, in trees, and also on the ground. Alert and graceful, it has excellent vision and is extremely fast, capable of speeds up to 10 miles an hour. Despite its name, the snake is usually gunmetal gray or brown in color, never black.
Black mambas are one of the most stigmatized snake species. They actually get their name not from the color of their scales, but the deep, inky black insides of their mouths.
The black mamba's venom has adapted to suit the predator's needs. Since the snake's diet consists mainly of rodents and other animals with sharp teeth and claws, it requires a highly toxic, fast-acting venom to subdue its prey while avoiding injury. As a result, it delivers its venom through a series of rapid stab-and-release bites in order to assure its own survival and live to bite another day. Snakes use venom both for killing and for defense. It's evolved to be a toxic cocktail that, over time, can also change in composition to suit the snake's habitat and prey. But before any snakes can inject venom, they must first be born. And that's a story with some very unique twists. The place is Manitoba, Canada, an hour north of Winnipeg. It's early spring, and a male garter snake emerges into the warmth from a den underground after winter hibernation. His tongue probes the air for a telltale scent. But he's not alone. Soon, other males surface, and a ritual of survival many millions of years old is about to begin. It's called sex. The garter snake's sexual behavior involves an intense phase arising in the spring, and during it, thousands of males appear, searching for a female.
In Manitoba, the unique combination of their climate and geology enables these large congregations of snakes. Temperatures in Manitoba can get as low as -50, and they have a natural limestone bedrock, which provides few opportunities for these snakes to actually overwinter below the frost line. So this combination of very cold temperatures and limited places to overwinter causes these huge numbers of snakes, as many as 10,000 in one spot, to happen.
This massive congregation of males waits for the females to emerge from the den. When they do, the females emit pheromones, which triggers a frenzy of excitement, resulting in what's called a mating ball. Mounds of males swarm the larger females. They rub their heads on her back, winding around her, trying to mate. Manitoba's spectacular garter snake mating ball is a unique event, occurring nowhere else in the world. Despite appearances here, amid the slithering and slinking, there are no sexual or territorial battles being fought. When the female is ready, she'll raise her tail, and the nearest male will mate with her. The union can last from under an hour to sometimes a whole day. The other males will lose interest in her and seek another female. The successful snake has a ploy to keep the female from being impregnated by other males. During mating, he deposits a fluid into her that hardens into a plug and acts as a barrier against other male sperm. An enforced chastity that lasts for several days. The male can turn his attention to other females, knowing his sperm cannot be replaced by a rival's. The female will eject the plug later, but depending on how long she's receptive to mating and how many active males are around, a second opportunity may have passed. In the world of the male garter snake, any scheme that leads to a successful mating is a good scheme. 3 months later, the impregnated female will give birth to as many as 50 baby garter snakes. But there's always hope for those males who missed their chance this year, because, like clockwork, the mating cycle will happen again, same time and same place next year. "70% of all snake species lay eggs that emerge from the female with a hard shell. The mother will seek out a secluded site that's moist and warm to drop her eggs, laying as many as 40 at a time. After placing the eggs, most female snakes will abandon the nest. But in some instances, like rat snakes, the mother stays close by. She does this to protect the eggs from predators, while also providing warmth, which helps them incubate. This maternal behavior is not typical throughout the snake world. Aside from going out to hunt, the rat snake mother will guard the eggs for up to 3 months before they hatch. When the day arrives, a snake's head cuts open the eggshell using a sharp growth on its snout called an egg tooth. After breaking through, a fully developed creature emerges from the egg, and life begins in earnest. The newborn rat snake can expect little parental protection and little in the way of predator training. There's also little contact with its siblings. It must be ready to face the world on its own, to survive or perish alone. Some 30% of snake species, including the mamushi, give birth to live young, where the eggs are held inside the female's body until they hatch. The babies then emerge from the mother covered by a thin membrane that supplied nutrients during their development. But once born, the babies break free from it. Scientists have found that snakes giving birth to live young tend to inhabit extreme latitudes and elevations. This suggests that live births occur in cooler climates and serve as an adaptation, ensuring the young receive constant humidity and temperature from their mother. Just as important, eggs hidden inside the mother's body are less vulnerable to predators than those nesting on the ground. Like their egg-hatching cousins, most new live-born snakes are independent and strike out on their own soon after they emerge. Experts say that some 50% of young snakes won't reach their first year, dying from starvation, freezing during hibernation, or being killed by a predator. This is a far different world than the one in the womb. And it's a world they'll have to adapt to quickly, or else. Snakes crawl, slither, slide, or wriggle over virtually any bit of dry land on Earth, having adapted over millions of years to survive in a range of habitats. But many species also inhabit rivers, ponds, and wetlands, their undulating terrestrial motion transferring to swimming. The Asian tiger snake lurks around streams and ponds, seeking out frogs, a staple of its diet. Born non-venomous, the tiger snake adapts by also eating poisonous toads, converting the toxic chemicals on their skin into venom, and using it against predators. Biological proof that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. This Asian snake, called the dog-faced water snake, is found in slow-moving, brackish rivers, tropical mudflats, as well as freshwater streams. They're strong swimmers, most active during the evening. And while occasionally appearing on land, it's not their comfort zone. The water is where they hunt. And fish are their main food source. Its name comes from the prominent eyes, with round pupils sitting high on its head, similar to a dog. In adapting to the environment, the snake has developed valved nostrils, which close underwater, and long lungs that help them float. Finding its prey in the shallows, the snake is relentless in pursuit. Dog-faced snakes have venom, but it's rarely powerful enough to subdue victims. Its fangs are small and located at the back of its mouth, not always sufficient for a kill. This time, a battle ensues. Here, the snake squeezes the struggling fish in its jaws and submerges it underwater in an effort to tire it out. Once the fish begins to falter, the snake will wrap several coils around it, constricting to finish the job. Next, the snake will begin swallowing the fish, a laborious task requiring patience and determination.
Snakes have a couple adaptations to be able to help swallow large prey. They're able to use their teeth a little bit to get traction on this item and help walk it back. Their highly flexible jaws enable them to move different sides of their jaw at different times and actually be able to help force it down into their throat. Once it's down, peristalsis takes place, which actually is the muscle action throughout the throat area that helps push it down into the stomach.
It'll take about 30 minutes for the snake to swallow the fish, with the venom helping to break down and digest the body before it reaches the stomach. Once this meal is done, it'll be at least a week before hunger will return the snake to the hunt. In Thailand's hot and humid rainforest, deep in the murk of the wetlands, a strange and wily hunter skulks. A snake that lives almost entirely on fish and has evolved a deceptive strategy for catching them. In the water, it appears rigid and twig-like. On its head are two antenna-like tentacles, inspiring its name, the tentacled snake. The snake anchors itself to plants, rigidly extending almost 3 feet. But like any snake, it's an air-breathing reptile, so about twice an hour, it'll need to come up to the surface. The tentacles aren't merely decorative. They detect water motion, and combined with visual cues, help the snake seize its prey. In this world, fish are especially elusive. When sensing a disturbance in the water, they swiftly change direction, doing a C-shaped curl in 5 milliseconds to escape a threat. By contrast, the tentacled snake is slower, taking as much as 15 milliseconds to react to the fish.
Fish have evolved to be quicker than snakes. The snake goes to strike that fish, the fish has already been able to flee. So the snake has to figure out a way to be able to catch its prey.
In this contest between predator and prey, the crafty tentacled snake has done just that.
One of the coolest adaptations that they have is a fishing technique. They're able to anchor themselves with their tail and remain very, very still. And what they do is they curl their head into almost an upside-down J pattern.
The snake uses the fish's escape response, the C-shaped curl, to its advantage. As a fish swims nearby, the snake's tentacles feel the ripple of the water, and it reacts.
What that snake does is it actually twitches its muscles on the opposite side of its head. So as that fish pulls a 180, the snake is already there and has anticipated where it's going to flee.
The snake's strategy sends the startled fish into its waiting jaws.
And so the snake is actually able to strike knowing where the fish is going to be rather than where it currently is. And that anticipation is what gives it a much better chance at success of catching that fish.
The tentacled snake has found its niche in the water. But many other snake species, in tropical and subtropical regions, spend their lives above ground. Literally in the trees. In this lush world, warm temperatures and high annual rainfall create thick, dense vegetation, giving our boreal snake species plenty of cover and abundant food. Many of these tree dwellers have adapted to this habitat in specific ways. They have long, slender foreparts and thicker hind ends, and in some cases, branch-grabbing prehensile tails. They also have extra muscular rigidity on their sides, allowing them to scale high up in trees and stretch between branches. Most arboreal snakes are green or brown in color to help them blend in with the foliage and conceal them from predators or prey. Here, they've also evolved a key anatomical adaptation. Compared to terrestrial or aquatic snakes, the arboreal snake's heart is closer to its head. This counters the effects of gravity on their circulatory system, which otherwise could lead to blood pooling dangerously in their lower body as they climb up a tree or navigate high branches. But for some arboreal creatures, climbing is not the only mode of travel. The rainforests of Southeast Asia are the setting for a unique air show. Among the flyers, Wallace's flying frog, which goes airborne regularly, using its webbed feet to leap from place to place. Some lizards also take advantage of this way of getting around, flying as much as 60 feet between landing spots. Not to be outdone, 5 species of snakes in this region also take to the air, including the paradise flying snake. It's capable of hurling itself from a tree branch, like a release spring, and floating through the air. But its name is a misnomer.
The paradise flying snake is not actually flying, it's one of the great gliders of the animal world. What it's able to do is spread its ribs and catch the air as they propel themselves off of these high branches.
What happens in midair is a matter of sheer adaptive genius. In glide mode, the snake spreads its ribcage like a parachute, while compressing its back into its stomach. To increase buoyancy, the snake flattens its frame, which acts as lift-generating wings. And by rippling its body back and forth, it can actually steer in midair.
So when these snakes launch themselves out of the tree, they're actually falling at a fairly steep angle, about 62 degrees. But as they're able to flatten those ribs out and catch the air, they're able to slow their descent to about a 13-degree angle and make it much more soft as they land.
The paradise flying snake can glide over 300 feet in the air. But the gliding is not just for getting around. It's used to hunt. This time, a lizard, seemingly blended into the foliage. The snake quietly inches along a branch. The lizard senses its presence and parachutes to safety. The snake springs from the tree and attacks. It curls its body around the hapless prey and squeezes the life out of it. Soon, the snake begins swallowing it, ending another successful hunt. Aquatic and tree-dwelling snakes have developed many adaptive solutions to survive in their environments. But in another habitat, a remarkable species of snake has evolved, having some of the most potent venom in the world. With 71% of the Earth's surface covered by water, it's no surprise that the ever-enduring snake adapted to life in the deep. In these ocean currents, over 60 species, known as sea snakes, have evolved to become adept swimmers and hunters.
Sea snakes are found predominantly